Ladies and gentlemen, on this Wednesday evening, I got time and a story to tell. So if you're interested in a story, I would listen. Um, there are three things that people don't get to talk to me about. I won't allow you to have a conversation about it. And doesn't matter, my health is one. I won't talk to you about my health. It's none of your business. And that is a serious thing. So don't ask about it. I will talk about my health from time to time, and lately everything's been fine. I ain't had no aches and no pains, and I've been able to handle business without too much difficulties. Okay, so don't worry about it. I'm doing fine, but I do have to talk to you about something. Now, this is, some of you know exactly what scene this is. This is not a backdrop to, you saw the beginning of the video anyway. But some of you know without seeing all of that exactly what this is. If you don't know what this is Cheyenne Mountain. hmm A real military installation. You think they just made it up? That's Orlin. Mr. Orlin. He is known as an ascendant. He's an ancient. This is Stargate SG1. And I want to talk to you about Orlin. He's not really a child, thousands of years old. Hold on.
As far as I can tell, he's a normal human adolescent.
Who claims he's an ancient who has descended and taken human form.
There really is no other explanation, sir, for how he could have gotten into the base, or know the things he knows. I'm pretty sure he's given us the key to finishing the anti-prior technology Dr. Lee and I were working on.
According to the mission report on your first encounter with Orlin.
Now, I'm going to stop right there. I like the show a lot. As a matter of fact, I've seen every episode at least 3 times. Watched the entire series, first season to 10. Also watched Stargate Atlantis. Didn't really like it all that much, but you know, Stargate Atlantis. And then I saw Stargate Universe. They could have taken that show so far, but they went ahead and made a left turn when they should have made a right and another right, but they kept going left. And that show did exactly the direction they went. It left. And Origins thought that was all right. But I'm not here to talk to you about Stargate. I'm here to talk to you about Orlin. Where you at? Hold on. Let me find them. Uh-oh. This is all about the members. There he is right there. That's Orlin. Wasn't an adult, but he decided he wanted to help out the humans. And so he came back as a child. Okay? But the only problem is, all of that vast knowledge that he has, that brain cannot handle it. Came back as a child. His brain cannot handle it. It's what the way it is. Sorry, I got to minimize all of this stuff because all of this stuff was here before y'all came here. So y'all just excuse me. Now, what am I here to talk to you about? I have been telling people for years that I am going to lose the ability of communicating, and that is slowly progressing. As that slowly progresses, you know, certain other things are going to take place. Now, hold on now. It doesn't matter what you think, how you feel, what you believe. Doesn't matter if you think I'm crazy. I've been called crazy all my life, so I'm gonna be crazy. So let me have my own form of craziness. Okay? There is one thing nobody can do, and that is challenge what I know. I'm sorry. Because as I've proved time and time again, I don't study this stuff. I just know it. I don't take it for granted. But the fact that I just know it, there is nothing in science, nothing in nature that can provide an answer as to how they almost fried my brain. They did fry your brain, didn't they? You sound like they fried your brain. Oh, Lord. Anyway, and the fact that I'm up here having people tell me I'm the smartest person they know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not joking when I say this, and I'm not trying to make myself out to be something that I'm not. I am the smartest person I know. I'm not patting myself on the back for that. I know where my knowledge comes from. I don't take credit for that. It is just I've been able to retain a lot of information. Now I'll tell you because I told it to the group that I speak to in the mornings. When I was a kid, I had a friend. His name was Drake. I ain't gonna say Drake's last name because Drake is a good guy, and Drake was my best friend. Met Drake when I was bused to school, and Drake got along okay. But I was talking to Drake one day, and Drake literally told me, he says, "Man, you're boring," and he hung up on me. Just hung up the phone. Like, man, I was like, "No, you mother." I didn't curse back then. You know what? I was with another group of friends a couple of years later, and they were having conversations, and I could not engage in the conversation because I simply didn't know the stuff they were talking about. I only knew the so-called scholarly things, science, a little bit of junk that was on the news, but I didn't know the junk. You know the trivia stuff that most people talk about, that they know scores and they know athletes and they know all of that stuff. The stuff nobody really cares about because it doesn't matter. It's not going to change night and today a grain of rice into an apple or none of that. So I didn't know that stuff. So I had to go and study current events. But it wasn't enough to study current events because everybody knew the current events. So I had to study things people didn't know. My mother bought that encyclopedia, World Book Encyclopedia. I would sit in that room and I'd just turn pages and I'd just read because I had to know stuff nobody else knew. You want to know where I got it from? I want to let you know how it all got started. Okay? So now I could hold a conversation with anyone on just about any subject because I went and read. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I'm sitting in the library as a teenager. I'm not a nerd, but I'm sitting in a library and I'm studying because I had to know. So much that the librarians would open the library up early for me and close it late because of me. Okay? I hated reading, but studying was not reading. And that's what I would do. So that's why on just about every subject people bring up, there's only been twice that there was a subject somebody brought up and I didn't understand what they were talking about. I didn't know because I had never gone over that. That's only been twice. And I'm not joking when I say in my entire life, that's only been twice since that time period that I just told you about. I'm not advising anybody else to do that. That's not a good life. That's a horrible life. Why would you ever, like I did, try to outdo someone else or impress somebody? Because that's all I was doing. It has served me well in these latter days. Okay? Because, as I say, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The God I serve is the one who allows me to have this knowledge. Why? Because I asked him for 3 straight years for knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and discernment. 3 times a day at least, I would ask him for that. The fact that everybody else tells me and compliments me and speaks about what I know lets me know he did what I asked him to do for me. I don't take credit for nothing. It's not my knowledge. I told you I haven't studied most of the stuff. The other stuff that I went over, yeah, that was other stuff that I went over, but I lost most of that during the stupid operation. I don't remember growing up. I remember those times because those are bits and pieces. I can't put all of the pieces together. There was a time, 1998, I was able to remember everything and I wrote it down. And I mean, I wrote down everything I can remember. Pages, hundreds of pages of me documenting the stuff I had been through, memories. And I gave it to a friend and I said, I want you to see, this is my life. That's what I told him. You know what he did? He treated it as if it was paper. He didn't even read it. Just, and this was supposed to have been at that time, my best friend. You know, the basketball player I told you about that I helped him gain $351,000 in profits on a building that was only worth $179,000. He made $351,000 in profit and gave me $3,400 and told me we're done. I had known him since I was 15. And here I am about 42 years old, and he tells me we're done. After all that time, I barely said anything to him since then because I don't hate him, don't dislike him. That was who he was. I can't take that away from him. But I mention this to you, all of you, because he was who he was. When he discarded my papers, I didn't have any copies. I gave him my original copy. When he discarded my papers, I lost all of that. He had no idea how much that meant to me. I told him, but he had no idea. I mean, I told him how important that was to me, and I wanted to share it with him, and he discarded it. All I can say is, it is what it ain't. All right. And I mentioned that to all of you. That's why I don't have friends anymore. That's why I won't allow anybody else to be my friend. Now, mind you, I had known him before I knew my best friend Kevin. So he wasn't someone new. This is somebody I had known for years, since I was 15. Met Kevin when I was 19. Or was I 18? I was 18 when I met Kevin. Anyway, I had known him the longest at that point, and we'd been through a whole lot. His family, we're family. They treated me like family. We're family. That will never change. Sorry, but I digress. The reason why I mention that is because my memory, that was it. I had wrote everything down was because I asked for that, and he allowed me to remember all of that. And I wrote it down because I know I wasn't going to be able to retain it. And so when it was gone, it was gone. I promise you, to this day, I still don't remember my childhood. Okay, here's the thing. Three of my brothers. If I saw them tomorrow, I would recognize them in a crowd, but I would not recognize my sisters in a crowd unless I stared, because I know who they are. I know their names. I know their personality. If they stood in front of me and started speaking, I'd be able to speak back familiarity. I know who they are, know their names, know their personalities, but I can't hold on to the memory of them. I barely remember what my mother looks like. I know what my father looks like because I can look in the mirror, but I barely remember what my mother looks like. My best friend Kevin, there are a couple people whom I've met and whom I've seen that look similar to him, so I can remember him. But the rest, I can't hold on to that, no matter how hard I try. It's just not possible. I don't keep pictures. Lord have mercy. Pictures don't do me any good. Because if you gave me a picture, that's the only way I would see you from that point on. And that's the other problem. I only remember personalities. So I've had a couple people, oh man, what's up? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I made a promise to myself that I would not have a conversation with people without telling them. And I tell them what I went through, and then I would tell them, I honestly don't remember you. And they would talk for a little while. Oh no, you were blah blah blah, and blah, blah, blah. And then I would run it off to them. That's the way things are with me. But you remember the law? You remember this? You better believe it. He gave me two things that I remember: the law and Scripture. And that's obvious because the law and Scripture, they're almost the same. Not no. Man's law ain't nowhere near close to Scripture, but the outline of it is the intent and purpose. So I can hold on to that, but I can't hold on to anything else. I know tonight is Wednesday only because I just thought about it, okay? But I can't tell you what I did yesterday. I can't tell you what I did Monday, Sunday, or Saturday unless I really think about it. And I would really have to think about it. I can't tell you what I did last week. We've already been through that in my life where people try to challenge me, test me, see if I remember this or remember that. Don't play that game. When I talk, I say the same stuff over and over again. Go listen to my videos. When you hear me talk about a particular subject, I use the same words. I do the same line of thought, same line of thinking, same line of explaining, so that nobody could ever come to me and say, "Hey, I remember when you said," nope, I would never say that. Those words right there, I would never formulate those words in that structure ever. Why? Because my brothers used to do that to me. Sorry. There's a lot of anger there because I've hated that. They were family and they did that to me. I done already done told you guys how many times one of my brothers I would pay him, and I don't deal with money while other things are going on because I'll overpay someone. So I always pause. I'll even tell the person, no, I'll take care of you tomorrow because I got too many things going on and I don't want to make a mistake. That's the way I have to. That's why I don't let myself get overwhelmed. I don't let myself get stressed about anything. I don't care to be stressed about anything. I don't have any worries. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm not worried about 10 minutes from now. I'm not. I had a dog, Griff. You guys heard of Griff? Well, Griff, I let my dogs out this morning. Who let the? I did it. That was me that let them out. Anyway, and ladies and gentlemen, when I let the dogs out this morning, well, I did let them out. I told you I did it. Anyway, who let the? Anyway, it was me, and so I let the dogs out, and two of them came back. But Griff usually goes off by himself. So I go out there later, and here comes Griff as I'm closing the gate with the other dogs inside, and I say, Griff, and I look, and it's like he went and messed with some paint. I'm looking at him like, what is wrong with you? My eyes might be playing tricks on me. Well, it turns out that was blood all over his ears, all over the top of his head. Apparently, he got into a scuffle with somebody, and they kicked his butt. And he needed his butt kicked. Sorry, let me explain. Griff has been the dominant. This is his house, and he knows this is his property. And so the other dogs are subservient to him. He is the alpha on the property, and he's made it clear to everybody, and I'm not going to interfere with that. I let him be the alpha because it's the animal kingdom. But he went out there and found out that there was alfalfa and buckwheat and marla and man and stymie. He found all of the rascals because they kicked his butt. And you know what? He hasn't changed. I thought it would humble him a little bit, but he has not changed. He's back to being the dominant. So it wasn't. I knew it wasn't bad, and I was gonna wait to see how he would handle it. So he's done. He's done all right, and the other two dogs have catered to him. So I say that about that situation because I didn't worry about it. It's not that he's a dog. It's that if it was an emergency, I would have taken care of him. I have a shovel. What? I don't have a shotgun, but I have a shovel. I can beat that anyway. I would have taken him to the vet, and if it was something serious, but it was nothing serious. He just got his butt kicked, and I hope he learned his lesson. I really do, because he's stubborn, and I'm sorry, I'll say it the way it is. That's why he's my dog. He's just as stubborn as me. Literally, he is just as stubborn as me. He's a well-tamed dog. I mean, Griff is all right. He's the quietest out of all of them, same as I used to be. But yeah, he's a dog. Now, I wanted to take the time to talk about something. Um, there's a lot of talk out there, so I want to share something. What I want to share is about Scripture. Now, this is nothing important, but I want to talk about something because I was out doing the yard this past week. I've done this video before, by the way. Oh, look at that! Oh, he is so talented. He looks like he's articulate too, but he's not that type of color. Anywho, and ladies and gentlemen, I was out there with the yard, with the ducks, with the fixing things up and cutting the grass. And I was thinking about the fact that I'm literally cutting the grass. I'm literally killing weeds and all of that stuff. And I thought about it, and I was thinking about the people who say that they smoke weed because weed comes from God and it's part of nature and so it's not illegal and there's nothing wrong with it. And I realized that most of those people who say that are just creating an excuse for themselves. First, okay, technically everything comes from God. But then if you say that, then you'll say even evil came from God, and then that would be stupid because that couldn't come from him. Now I'll explain why, and the reason why it couldn't come from him because it originated someplace. It couldn't originate with him because he never demonstrated that. You see, there was a first time that it was ever demonstrated, and that's when an individual chose to lie. And that one lie led to everything else. But I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about the Garden of Eden. We know it was in Africa because of the rivers and the Euphrates rivers, the Hiddekel and the other rivers. And so we know it was in Africa. Okay, fine, we have that. Now remember, this was one huge continent. And you know what? Don't text me, email me. I cannot remember the name of the continent. And I know the name, I just can't recall it because it wasn't on my mind. I wasn't planning on talking about it. Okay? But the earth was one continent at one time. We know that, tectonic plates. But what they don't know is how the continents shifted so vastly. Well, it's easy. It was the flood. That's what displaced the land. You can see that all the land is connected underneath the oceans. It was the water that displaced the land. But anywho, ladies and gentlemen, because scientists know this, we have the Garden of Eden in Africa. What about all of the vegetation and the fruit and the plants and all of that variety? Now, let me show you something I think you might find interesting because there are people out there who believe that all of the fruit and stuff that Adam and Eve had access to, all of the vegetation, was in the Garden of Eden. And they don't even realize that it wasn't. Wait. I just want you to think about it. Let me show you something. We're going to go here to Genesis, the second chapter. Now, the heavens and the earth and everything in them were complete. Okay, so everything in them, the plants, vegetation, man, animals, everything's complete. But we're going to talk about the vegetation, okay? We're not going to talk about him forming man from the dust of the ground, but we are going to talk about this one. Thus Jehovah made to grow out of every tree that was pleasing to look at and good for food. So he said he made to grow out of the ground every tree that was pleasing to look at and good for food, and also, conjunction, and also the tree of life. Only one tree like it in the middle of the garden, and in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. See, these are the only two trees that there were no twins. There was no other tree like them. There wasn't another one outside. These are in the garden. Now, how do we know this was in the garden? Further, Jehovah God planted a garden in Eden to the east and and there he put the man whom he had formed. And in the garden, he makes to grow every tree that is pleasing to look at and good for food, and also the tree of life. So understand something. The trees on the outside of the garden are not these trees. Yeah, we have thousands of varieties of apples, but please understand, not the same apples that were in the Garden of Eden. How do we know this? Well, let's prove it. All right, we're going to go to the third chapter because we have to go to where it all began. About that serpent and convincing the woman. Well, notice, now I need you all to pay attention to what goes on here. This is very important. Consequently, the woman saw, pay attention, that's a very important feature of this story. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was something desirable to the eyes. Yes, the tree was pleasing to look at. Wait, hold on. Let's go back over here to chapter 2 so that you guys can pay attention to why that's important. Thus, Jehovah God made to grow out of the ground every tree that was pleasing to look at and good for food. And so Eve saw that it was something desirable to the eyes and that it was pleasing to look at. So she began taking of its fruit and eating it, and afterwards, now pay attention to this word. It denotes continuous action. She began taking, not just one, not just two. Remember, she was there by herself. So when her husband, when he was with her later, after she's sitting up there having a smorgasbord, he began eating, pay attention, continuous, it as well. So it says she began taking the fruit and eating it. Afterwards, she also gave some to her husband when he was with her, because this shows that he wasn't with her when she began taking it. But when he showed up next to her, around her, she gave some to her husband when he was with her, and he began eating it. Two things. Nobody deceived Adam. He just ate. Why? This is why Adam just ate. It's sad, but it is what it is. 23, verse number 23. Then the man said, "This is at last bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one will be called woman, man with a womb, because from man she was taken." She wasn't called woman by God. Adam is the one who called her woman. Why not? He named all of the animals, so he was pretty good at naming things. Go ahead, every single animal the name fits. But pay attention. That's not showing you why Adam did what he did. Let me show you why Adam did what he did. Then Jehovah said, "It is not good for man to continue to be alone. I'm going to make a helper for him as a complement of him." Now, it says, "And Jehovah had been forming from the ground every wild animal of the field and every flying creature of the heavens." That's how we know that animals and men came from the same place. That's why the people who talk about evolution, yeah, I said it. The people who talk about evolution, that's why they all say the same thing, that we all came from the same place, the ground, the earth. Everything in the earth is in us. Uranium, plutonium, petroleum, all of that stuff is inside of us. The same stuff that's in the ground, that's how they know we came from the ground. From dust you are, and to dust you return. Now, hold on now. And he began bringing them to the man to see what he would name them. Bringing who? All of the animals and the flying creatures. Bringing them to the man to see what the man would name them. Pay attention. So the man named all of the animals. So Jehovah God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. Why? It says, "But for the man there was no helper or complement of him." Yeah, the man got to see all of the other animals had a mate, but he didn't. So he felt lonely. I'll take my word for it. So Jehovah God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of his ribs and then closed up the flesh over it. That's called surgery, over its place. And Jehovah God built from the rib that he had taken from the man into a woman. And he brought her to the man. Now, hold on now. That's how the marriage, the father of the bride delivers it to the groom. That's where that comes from. But hold on now. Let me explain something. Hey, you took a rib? That doesn't make any sense. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know the rib is the only part of the human body that contains every aspect and element? The marrow, everything. It is the only component for which you can use, and it's the only part of the body that grows back. Go ahead can cut a finger off and see if that junk will grow back. But a rib will eventually grow back. How did he know? Don't ask me. All right. Now that we have that, let's prove that the fruit in the garden wasn't the same as the fruits that were outside the garden, because everybody thinks we're eating the same food that they were eating when they were in the garden. So let's make sure. And Jehovah, well, we don't want the serpent. I need this one right here. And to Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife's voice and you ate from the tree concerning which I gave you the command, you must not eat from it. Curses the ground on your account. In pain, you will eat its produce all the days of your life, and it will grow thorns and thistles for you. And you must eat the vegetation of the field. In the sweat of your face you will eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. He told him that he would eat the produce of the ground all the days of his life. Okay, so he's going to eat the vegetation of the field because he told him you'll eat the vegetation of the field. Okay, they were vegetarians at first. Shh, don't worry about it. It ain't important for this. But let me show you something that you need to understand, how we know that the fruit that we're eating now is not the same fruit they were eating. Jehovah God then said, here the man has become like one of us, knowing good and bad. Now, in order that he may not put his hand out and take from the fruit, also from the tree of life, and eat and live forever. With that, Jehovah expelled him from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he had been taken. So he drove the man out, and he posted him to the posted at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubs. Cherubs, these are the military wing. They're fighters. And the flaming blade of a sword that was turning continuously to guard the way to the tree of life. Ladies and gentlemen, he drove them out of the Garden of Eden. It means all of those plants and trees that he put in the Garden of Eden, well, they had no access to them anymore. We have no access to them. But it was an apple! Okay, let's say it was an apple. If it was, why would he prohibit them from eating and allow you to do it? Well, because what? And if it was an apple, pay attention, there are over 17,000 varieties of apple. Most of them are long and since gone. They're extinct as far as the variety. But over 17,000 different types of apples. Right now, currently on this planet, there are 7,000. 10,000 of that species of apple, gone. So it wasn't an apple. Remember, the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, pay attention. There was only one tree like it. That's why it was in the middle of the garden. Shh, don't tell nobody. Yeah, they teach that to kids in school because they think it'll help them remember and better understand it. So the fact that people thought it was an apple all this time. But hold on now, we're not finished. There's a whole lot more going on here. Because it says he drove them out, and he put the two cherubs at the Garden of Eden. What most people don't know, I'm going to click on this because I think it might take me, no, it ain't going to take me there. Gladys Knight, not Gladys Knight, but the Staple Singers would do that, but it ain't going to take me there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to have to pause y'all because I know exactly where I'm going, but I got to get there, and I don't know the exact verse, and I don't want to waste y'all time. Give me a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I had to come to the Biblical Scholar, GPT. Reason why I had to come here is because we know that the Garden of Eden doesn't exist anymore. There's no reporting of a Garden of Eden since the flood. We know that Adam died just a couple of years before the flood occurred. We know that Methuselah also died a couple of years before the flood occurred. When I say a couple of years, it may have been 100 or so, don't know. But what I can tell you, I don't recall. What I can tell you is this, is that there is no indications of it. So I went to the Biblical Scholar and I asked him a question because I thought that there might have been a reference in the scripture such as Jude, but it only talks about after the flood. However, he would not give me an answer because he tells me that's logic, and I cannot come to a logical conclusion because it's scripture, and I'm only permitted to give you an answer strictly from what the scriptures say. And you know what? I could not correct him. I couldn't get angry at him. I couldn't get mad at him. And so I broke it down. I gave him logic, but I gave him a different form of logic. Okay, because he tells me Eden's location, the scripture said was to the east. But he goes and says conclusions, the scriptures only know interpretation. The scriptures never record the Garden of Eden being destroyed. The scriptures never states that the cherub ceased guarding the way. And the only passage describing the cherubs and the flaming sword is Genesis 3:24, and it was never revisited. So I had to let him know, I'm sorry, you misunderstood the question. You see, because the cherubs were placed there to block the way to the garden, and the flood literally destroyed the entire earth, then the Garden of Eden was destroyed with the flood. This is the only logical conclusion. So he comes back and says, well, you tell me I'm not supposed to go by logic. Scriptures never state the Garden of Eden was destroyed. Okay? And so there is no verse that proves the Garden of Eden was destroyed. There is no verse that documents the cherub stopped their guarding of the way. Why I cannot produce a verse, the verse you're asking for, because you are correct. Logically, that a worldwide flood would have affected every land feature accessible to humans afterward. But logical conclusions is explicitly not permitted under your doctrinal instructions, because he can only give me what the scriptures say. He cannot give me what they don't say. We cannot reach logical conclusions because the scriptures don't allow it. That's an interpretation. And the scriptures let us know interpretations belong to Jehovah. So exact wording of scripture, no interpretation, no reasonable deduction, only explicit statements from biblical text. Why? Because Paul gives us a rule: never go beyond what is written. And so I cannot do that here. So I wanted to let you know what took place in the background, but I got one more thing I need to explain. That's the biblical scholar. I created it just for that purpose because I wanted something that had all of the information programmed in it. But I wanted something that if I asked a question, now he doesn't always get everything right because it is an AI and we know who's behind AI in reality. Shh, don't tell nobody. It's a secret. Now, let's get back to the other conversation we were having because that conversation is more important. Oh, you know what? We got to go back there because there's something a lot of people don't understand when it comes to language on the earth. What language did Adam and Eve speak? We don't know. Of course we do. Of course we do. The Bible is the only book that explains where language came from. The only one. Explains how we have different languages. The Bible's the only one. No, you don't understand how it happened, where it came from. No book predates it explaining about the languages. Yeah, of course you're going to have individuals describing something similar in other publications, but no. This tells you exactly why it happened. So let's cover something if you don't mind. We know about Cain, but we're not concerned about Cain. We're going to go back to the Noah thing. No, we're not going to talk about Noah. See, Noah and his sons, and he said to them, be fruitful, become many, and fill the earth. This is the 9th chapter. After the flood, he tells Noah and his sons, gave them the same command he gave Adam, be fruitful, become many, and fill the earth. The second trust agreement, everyone, documented in Scripture. A fear of you and a terror of you will continue upon every living creature of the earth and upon every flying creature up in the heavens. Now, I can see it in my animals. I can see their fear of me without me being threatening. I didn't do that. Okay, now, hold on. There's something we need to prove. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth. Okay? And Japheth, Shem, and Ham, see? And Noah's sons, they came out of the ark with him were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yay! Ham later became the father of Canaan. A lot of people want to say, now I want y'all to pay attention, this is very important. that Jesus was black. Impossible. That means that Jesus would have been a descendant of Ham. How do we know? Because Canaanites were the darker skin, the darker races. Japheth were the Asian races, and Shem were the what people refer to as white races. Hold on, let's talk about it. See, and all of the earth's populations came from them and spread abroad. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down because it's very necessary. Oh, and we're not going to talk about this issue right here, but we want to talk in the 10th chapter. We want to go and we want to highlight that. Okay, this is the 10th chapter. See? Uh-oh, where are we at? Number 10? There you go. That's number 10. 10th chapter. This is the history of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, let's do this. Japheth, A, to the east, Magog, Gomer, Media, Javan, Tabal, Meshech, and Tyrus. Okay? Go ahead and you'll see that those are the ones to the east. What we refer to as Asians. Don't take my word for it. Do the history. Now, these are Japheth's people. Now we're going to talk about Ham. The sons of Ham was Cush. You heard of Cushite? Ethiopians are Cushites. They're Canaanites. They are dark race individuals. Now, hold on now. This is very important that you get this. From that race came Nimrod, the first black king. But that's not the first thing that you need to understand about this. We're going to come all the way down here. Children were also born to Shem, the forefather of all the sons of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the eldest. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Apashad, Lud, and Aram. Ain't that something? The sons of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mesh. Now, when we come down here, we're going to find that they built themselves a city with a tower because they decided they wanted to stick together. We are family. Now, hold on now. It says he confused their languages. That's why it's called Babel, because it sounded like blah, 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 just means confusion. It's called the city of confusion. And Jehovah confused their languages of all the earth, and Jehovah scattered them from there all over the surface of the earth. Now, the history of Shem. Well, guess what? Guess who came from Shem? Y'all not going to believe this. I know it's going to be difficult for you. Here's the history of Terah. He's a descendant of Shem. Well, guess what? Terah had a son named Abram, who was later called Abraham. Abraham later had a son called Jacob, who is also known as Israel. The Israelites came from Shem. They did not come from Ham. The wife of Abram, his son, and they went with him out of Ur of the Chaldeans to the land of Canaan. The Canaanites, the dark people, the dark-skinned individuals. The Egyptians, pay attention, and the Israelites, two different races of people, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. The slaves, the Israelites, were not black. Yeah. If you learn about Tanaka, the king of Ethiopians, how he went in there and he changed the hieroglyphs. This is history. You can go look it up. Don't worry about me. I'm just bringing this to your attention. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is because it's right there. All you have to do is read it. But so many people are hung up on race. It has nothing to do with race. It was never about race. You go prior to the 20th century, you go to any portion of the East, and nobody was focused on race. It was only these so-called individuals, Europe and the West, that were focused on race. They made it about race. Nobody else cared about race. They cared about religion back then. What a fool believes. They cared about what you believed. They cared about the God you served. All right. I just thought I'd share that because dealing with the fruit, vegetables, if only people knew. They keep talking about the medicinal purposes. You guys must understand the medicinal purposes, and I do a lot of vegetables these days, which I can contribute to a little bit better health. I don't do any red meat, any green meat, any purple meat, any blue meat. I don't do any type of meat because I'm colorblind. I don't want no more meat. Okay? Now, there's a reason for it. I didn't just stop eating meat because I hate meat. You give me some kielbasa sausage and I might change my mind. Okay? Because I love me some kielbasa. Now, I do eat fish, but fish ain't meat. It's not a mammal. Hold on now. There's a whole lot of understanding of that because when it comes to meat, I went too far. You see, 9, when they came out of the ark, pay attention. He says, only flesh with its life is blood you must not eat. But he gave them permission to eat meat when they came out of the ark. Okay? Prior to that, they didn't eat meat. But notice this, upon everything that moves on the ground and upon all fish of the sea. He always separated fish from mammals. Always. And so do I. I eat fish, but I don't eat meat. Well, fish is meat. I know, but I'm not allowed to use that type of logic because the scriptures don't say that. I don't care what a scientist said. I can only go by what the scriptures say. Okay? So that's my logic. Leave me alone. And so, as I bring this to a close, what I want to say is I know that I am going to get to the point where I'm not going to be able to focus. I'm not going to be able to have a conversation. Although I am going to be able to focus and have a conversation. It's just when I speak, you're not going to understand. I will stop doing videos long before that. Before it gets bad, I will stop doing videos long before that. Now that's only going to be temporary. That's not permanent. So when the doctors, and I will let you know, because I've already mentioned it, when they diagnosed early Alzheimer's and so-called dementia, they were just doing it based on what I was explaining to them. They weren't doing it because they took some extensive tests, but that is the diagnosis, early dementia and Alzheimer's. Ladies and gentlemen, I gave them the same information that I've had since the operation of not being able to remember my past, okay? Not being able to remember what I did last week or the week before without thinking about it. I told them the same thing. I've been telling that to people since 1990, since the operation. So when they talked about early onset, it's been that way for years. So there is no early onset anything, but I do know because he's allowed me to understand. I asked him to please help me to be aware of things that pertain to me before they happen because I don't like surprises. And he allowed me to understand that. Everything else has happened with the exception of 2 things which are future, but everything else has happened. And so I see this creeping up on me because I can feel it coming in the air. Okay, anyway, I sense it coming. I see it coming. And so let's just say I was going to be all right. It will only be temporary, but it needs to be. I've been watching from time to time certain news feeds, and there's this thing about them building concentration camps again. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, they're going to build concentration camps because they got no other choice because of the direction we're headed in. They need to be in total control. But we got to focus on the amount of lives that are going to be lost. So you can't build concentration camps with this many people because you can't control them. There'll be a revolt. However, if you can decrease the population, then you can start putting people in concentration camps and telling them the only way they get out is if they obey, obey, obey. Watch. Don't take my word for it. But hold on. That's when he says he's going to step in. Right at that moment when it looks like, man, it's about, oh God, this can't be any worse. Then he will step in. But gotta wait for that time. All right, I just thought I'd share this with all of you. Those of you who took the time to stay here to listen, I will do what I can. Like I said, as long as he provides the information for me to provide the information to y'all, I will do it, hands down, at great sacrifice to myself. The reason why I showed you about Orlin from Stargate SG1, because the more he used his brain to help them figure out what they needed to survive, the more damage he was causing to himself. What I'm trying to tell you is the more I am sitting up here focusing on this stuff and thinking about it and trying to outthink these idiots, the more damage I'm causing to myself. That's okay. I've known it since I first started doing this. It's worth it. If I was doing it and it wasn't for a purpose, it wouldn't be worth it. Just wait till you see the stuff that we're setting up to where it will survive me. I ain't about to die anytime soon. I just won't be doing videos and won't be doing cameos and all of that stuff. But for the most part, it will survive me. So just stay tuned. All right, gotta go because I gotta go jump off the top of this mountain, man. This stuff is gonna be fun. Watch this. Whee! Gotta go. You all take care. I'm out of here.